Sometimes it just gets to be too many damn letters. You know what I'm saying? Like, seriously, like, it just, you're adding letters on. So, like, sometimes I appreciate it, and then other times I'm like, it's too many damn letters.
So my name is Ariel. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am going to be moderating the panel. Now, I just want to call something out right away, which is that we tried our best to have as many people from varied backgrounds and varied identities represented here, but of course it is impossible for us to represent every single facet of the LGBTQ community. So we know that, and we just want to call that out. So the first thing I want to ask is, raise your hand if you identify as a member of the LGBTQ community. All right. Can I have everybody go around and just tell me their names and how they identify?
Sure. Well, my name is Donnie, and I use he, him pronouns, and I identify as a transgender, pansexual, or bisexual man.
My name is Blair. I'm transgender, and I'm a Republican.
Okay.
My name is Caleb. I use he, she, and they pronouns, and I identify as a non-binary queer.
I'm Raquel Willis, pronouns she, her, hers. I identify as a Black, queer, transgender woman.
My name's Sarah Longwell, and I identify as a lesbian.
My name's Jamie. I use they, them pronouns. I identify as a queer, non-binary trans femme. I also identify in the A spectrum of asexuality.
I'm Benji. I'm a guy, and I'm an American.
My name is Paul. I identify as a gay American male.
My name's Zachary Zane. I use he, him pronouns, and I identify as bisexual and queer.
I'm Brandon Strock, and I'm a gay man.
David Valbranch, he, him, his. I identify as a cis, same-gender loving man.
All right, my name is Lucy. I'm a lesbian.
Okay, so it's Pride Month. Who here thinks that Pride is still relevant? Is it still relevant? Is it useful? Is it important?
Yeah, I think it's more so relevant for people in other countries in which being gay is illegalized, and you can face jail time or worse, death for being gay. And I think here it's more of a party, which is fine. I'm not against parties, but I think it's especially important for people living in other countries.
Zachary, your brow is very furrowed.
I don't think we should underestimate the power it has to have certain young queer people just to see other people be visible, to be welcome and part of a community. Maybe not necessarily as important in cities like New York, where I feel very comfortable expressing my queerness, but especially in other places across America where they don't have that large of a queer community, where being queer isn't as visible. I think it's really important to still have pride for those people.
And I also think it's important because in this day and age, we've had, about 5 Black transgender women be murdered in the past couple months. And so we do need to actually have
11.
those visible. 11, yeah. So it's even more than that. So it's one of those things where if we don't have these images out there, we don't have these options for people to realize and understand that they're not alone, then all they see are these traumatic experiences and all the discrimination and oppression that is still happening in this country. It's not just in other countries.
I'm going to just claim the mantle as the senior spokesman of the group. But I went to my first gay bar in 1977 in West Hollywood. There were actually bars and restaurants on Santa Monica Boulevard that had signs in front that said, "No faggots allowed." Mm-hmm. It was a very different place. I think Pride today should really embrace the changes that we've made over these decades because we've made it a more inclusive society to the point where I think we're one of the most protected groups, I know from an employment standard in history. So I'd like to see Pride really take on a different sort of approach and celebrate what we've overcome.
In your opinion, do you think that we're done working on equality within the LGBTQ community? Is there still a fight to fight?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm from a small town in Texas, and where I'm from, people do not accept me being gay, me being queer, me being gender expansive or anything. And I was raised 2 hours away from where Malaysia, which Black trans woman in Dallas, Texas, was killed. So I don't think that the equality that we want to see, the equality that we should see, is actually happening in America now.
I'm sorry, could I ask a question? Because I think this is really important and relevant. I feel like the majority of people who feel like they're still struggling with lack of equality are people who are identifying as queer, I don't identify as queer. That does not define me. That's not a word I want to be called as a gay man. So what I'd like to know is, what is the definition of queer? For the people who identify as queer, what does that mean?
I've always known it as a
He's
slur.
the moderator, right?
No, I just don't know how to have the discussion if we don't establish that. Like,
That's a good conversation. That's a good point. Who here identifies as queer? Raise your hand. Okay. For the people who didn't raise their hands, why? What are your thoughts and feelings on the word queer?
We were talking before, and we said like queer was supposed to be like a put down or a diss. You know what I mean? I look at it myself. It's a regular red-blooded American gay guy. I don't really see why I have to be all these other letters and all this other stuff added to it. I mean, no offense to anyone, but it sounds a little bit nuts to me. I don't understand why we have to be all this other stuff. Like, why can't I just be gay and be happy with that? Or why do I have to look at, if I'm not, queer or binary, whatever, then I'm like privileged in some way. And it's like, I'm from the hood just like anybody else. Where's all this privilege I'm supposed to have coming from? Because I don't have it.
I didn't understand
it really
half the
is.
things,
And I'm gay,
honestly.
it's hard to keep up.
I think that my issue is not what you identify as, it's when you try to tell me what I should identify as. And if I say that I'm queer, non-binary, or if I say I'm a shoe, that's my business. And I don't
who's
think
telling
that
you what to identify as?
I'm just responding. What I'm saying is that people who say that queer is what you said offensive. My thing is like, why does it matter what I identify as? It's my identity.
You're claiming it's the source of your oppression.
No,
So since it's the source of your oppression, what is it?
What I said.
Sorry, what do you mean by that, Brendan? I think you should expand on it a little
Well,
bit.
I'm noticing that the people who say that they're still victimized and oppressed here in this country are the people who are identifying as queer, non-binary, gender fluid, all these different things. What is it? What does queer mean? So in order for me to support you or not support you, I need to understand you.
Have you read up on the word queer? Have you Googled it?
Yeah, have you?
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. The definition in the dictionary is a whole laundry list of derogatory terms, which I think are apt. I think it's an insult. I think it's a slur. I think it's low rent. I think it's embarrassing. I think it's degrading. I think it's demeaning.
Okay. I
Yeah.
think we get it.
It means weird in the dictionary, and if we're trying to get to a place where we normalize our community, I don't think labeling us as weird is really the right way to do it.
Right, and maybe that's why you're not accepted.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Perhaps that's why you're not accepted.
Brendan wants to know, how do you define the term queer? Now, from what I understand, different people view the word differently. But is there somebody here who would like to volunteer some kind of definition?
I would love to share. I think the term queer, like, you have the right to feel that it is offensive because that's a fact. We know that it was used offensively as a slur for decades, forever, and probably in still some circumstances today. But people reclaimed it as a word that was more expansive of their experiences, right? So for a lot of people, gay doesn't fit. For a lot of people, lesbian doesn't fit. Like, these terms were a little bit restrictive when it came to them talking about their identity, who they were attracted to, what they were into, all of that. And also from a gender standpoint, right? There are a lot of people who don't fit into what we consider a binary, right? This like man, woman kind of idea, right? So queer is an umbrella term. It is expansive.
I still don't understand really. It's supposed to be
'Cause who's
an
in
umbrella
jail?
term.
Who's not free?
But then when it becomes everything, then it's kind of nothing at the same time. I still don't have a clear definition
Yeah,
of
you
what someone's
defined what
queer
it's
means.
not, but you still haven't defined what it is.
And then
Donnie,
where's the
you
white
seem to
part
have some
come in?
thoughts on this.
Sure. So when I think of the term queer, I tend to think of somebody who is either not cisgender or not heterosexual. That's my impression
Be
of what
gay or
queer
trans,
means.
which is already in the
Right.
You can be
acronym.
those things also, but see,
what's the difference?
Well, let me explain, and I'll see what I can do for you. So, for my experience as previously a lesbian woman, before I came out as a transgender man, I used the word gay, I used the word lesbian, I used the word woman to describe me before I realized that wasn't actually accurate. Now, I am a transgender man who is married to a cisgender woman, so people would say I'm a straight man, but I'm not straight because I lived as a lesbian for 20 years before I came out as transgender. Also, I like people of all genders, so what the heck do I have to call myself now? Do I call myself a former lesbian, bisexual/pansexual, transgender man in order to not use the word queer? Absolutely not. It's
Do
one
you feel like when
syllable.
you use the word queer, people know that you are all of those things, that suddenly it becomes crystal clear
I
to
think
people?
what's more important to people is that they know what I'm not. And they know that I'm not a cisgender heterosexual.
I want to sort of expand this conversation a little bit more. Do you feel represented by the acronym LGBTQIA+? If you
No.
could raise your hand if you do.
do.
If you feel represented by the acronym LGBTQIA+.
In some ways.
I mean,
Okay,
maybe.
all right.
Yeah.
Just on the simple, basic level of like, there's a T in it, and I match that. But that's a superficial sort of thing. There's
Okay.
much more to me and everyone here, I think.
Exactly.
I think there's an irony because I'm hearing the people who seem very more opposed to queer are also the same people who are opposed to having all the additional letters in the alphabet.
100%.
And since queer, then this goes back to Donnie, since queer is being more inclusive of those other letters in the alphabet, I don't necessarily love all the letters in the alphabet. That's why I like the word queer. So I can have this one word that is more inclusive of everything. So I feel like you either can't
Which
necessarily
still
be.
remains to be defined.
Yeah,
no one can define the word.
I thought I did.
It just means
I'm pretty sure
No,
I
you really
intentionally-
didn't.
So
It is
but
the
an easy
absence of
definition
cisgender.
would be
that is
anybody
the
who's a
T.
gender or
That is the
sexual
T.
minority.
To say
right?
Say again?
Anybody who's a minority based on their gender or sexuality,
But
right?
that already is covered in LGBT. What
yes.
happens is when you add all these letters, it dilutes the message of LGBT in the original fight that we're all talking about, and it makes it harder for people that were actually fighting for
Are
their
there some
acceptance
people
to
who
understand.
appreciate having LGBTQIA+ be a thing that exists? Do they feel like it helps them be seen or their friends be seen? Anybody here?
So no one
at all?
but y'all? Okay.
Sometimes it just gets to be too many damn letters.
It's a lot.
You know what I'm saying?
It's a
Like,
lot.
seriously, like it just you adding letters on. So like sometimes I appreciate it, and then other times I'm like, it's too many damn letters.
And who
like,
decides?
Which is why
That's
queer
the
is
other thing.
good,
but
because
this
then you
which is why
incorporate.
queer I think is a good option. And if someone says I use queer because I don't want to use all the and I don't actually fit under all those letters, then to
think-
me it's a good option.
We're technically LGBTQIAAP2+.
See, that's
We
too
are
much.
not.
That's,
It's,
maybe y'all are.
That's what I'm saying. Like that's
Maybe
the full
y'all are.
acronym. So like to say like no, I'm supporting you in this and saying like yes, this is a lot, and I do understand that.
Benji?
And I for certain definitely don't feel represented by it because I'm Republican, conservative, Trump person. So all that stuff I already see is just not for me. You know, I'm not invited to barbecue. I'm not invited to the ball. You know, I'd rather have $25 drinks at Trump DC anyway. What I'm saying is that whole thing, I feel like when you're a conservative, none of that it affects me at all. I just look at myself as an individual. I mean, I'm a gay man, I'm open, I'm proud. I've never been, in the closet ever a day in my life. But I just feel like when you put all those letters and all those constraints and all these professors are telling you have to think like this and do this and be that it doesn't represent just a regular guy trying to live his life like me. I don't feel represented by rainbow flag, any of it. I feel like back in the day, I did, but I feel like now that everything's so politicized that there's really no room for anyone who's conservative and gay. Like even for like Pride, where am I gonna go? You know what I mean? I don't have any plans. I'm not going anywhere, but where would I go without, being, kicked out of somewhere or God forbid you wear one of those red hats somewhere and it's like you're a victim. So I just feel like the whole spectrum just totally has nothing to do with me as an individual.
I think that it is clear from the people who are here that the LGBTQ community is not a voting monolith. So I would love to know, who here identifies as a Democrat? If you could raise your hand. Okay, 2 people. All right, who here identifies as liberal? Okay, a couple more. All right, and who here identifies as Republican? Okay. Who identifies as conservative? Okay. Folks who are conservative and Republicans, if you don't mind, who did you vote for in the last elections for president?
Trump.
I voted for Donald J. Trump.
Okay.
And I'm gonna do it again.
All right.
Donald J. Trump, and he gets my vote again.
All right.
Hillary Clinton. Never again. Trump 2020.
Okay. Lucy?
Mr. Trump.
I did not vote for Trump, and I will not be voting for him again. So I think I may be the only conservative on the panel who is not on the Trump train.
Do you want to tell me why?
I don't think Trump is a conservative. I don't even think he's a Republican. I don't think he's a person with fixed values of any kind. I think he's somebody who stood on the stage with Vladimir Putin and sided with him against our own intelligence community. I think he does not believe in human rights or civil rights. He and I share very few values. And even though I can say, do I support tax cuts or judges or some of the policy areas where I think I would overlap with some of my other Republican friends, this is a values question for me, and this is not an administration that reflects my values.
I totally disagree, but
Yes,
I do
that's
respect
okay.
you
Sure.
and how you feel.
You said you still feel supported by President Trump? That you still...
won't vote for him again, though. I like what he's done, and I agree with a lot of his more financial decisions when it comes to our country. But I mean, you're exactly right. His executive orders, they're not what we need. I don't believe the government should be so involved in our lives, and I don't think we need to be asking handouts from the government. So I'm going to be looking for someone else for the 2020 elections.
I actually want to ask you guys, how do you feel about the Trump administration when it comes to LGBTQ folks? Do you feel that his policies have either helped or harmed the LGBTQ community?
I'd like to take that because I'm going to go back to the Reagan years, and there's a lot of hatred of Ronald Reagan because he never addressed AIDS. That was a big crisis, and it was terrible. And I spent, days going to funerals and memorial services. Today, I think Donald Trump is really changing the Republican Party by working with the gay and lesbian community. He wasn't a racist or a homophobe until he ran for president. His best friend was Joan Rivers, who was like the patron saint of gays. If there was a homophobic drop of blood in him, we would have heard that 20 years ago.
I would push back and say he was a racist when Central Park 5 happened.
Nope. He's been a racist
Central
for a
Park
long
5
time.
happened.
Actually,
so I would say
no.
that.
I actually have here the op-ed that Trump put out about Central Park 5. There's nothing here mentioned about racism. If anything, he's talking about having a safe city for black and brown and white people. That's a narrative that keeps getting pushed and pushed and pushed. And we're going to talk. We got to talk from a place of truth.
You bought that?
This man, I
For real?
did.
You did?
I pulled up receipts. That's what you got to do nowadays for narrative. So, and if we're going to talk,
gotta
let's
put a
talk from a
soundbite
place
on
of
there,
truth.
right.
No, it's not. It's receipts on it.
Just
That's
buy
the
it. It's
thing.
not a receipt.
It's
How's
a
it a
receipt.
receipt?
It's a receipt.
How did he improve
Because
these?
you people
How
are
did he
saying that
improve these
he's
by
racist.
just saying it in the flyer?
people.
That's enough proof for you?
No, you're saying no.
That's enough
You
proof for
people
you?
are saying
That's enough
that
proof
he
for you?
did this racial thing to Central Park 5. I'm putting out the actual op-ed, which is actually what we're talking about. And there's nothing racial in here.
Well, when
It's
a
not
rich
in
white
here.
person takes out a article for $500,000 whatever dollars for 5 young black men, young boys actually, all under the age of
There's
16 and
nothing in
17,
here
regardless
about
of
race.
if it's racism or not,
Nothing
if
about
they
race.
think that they're
But
being
I
racist or not,
understand
the
nothing about
perspective
race. I
is
understand
that
you
it's
hold on to
racist.
victimhood because that's how the
Okay.
left contains power. But sorry, there's nothing racial there.
Donnie, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, but I also don't feel like it's really my place to speak for this.
Well, I think if
Well,
there's
sorry,
certain people-
just going back to the original question, which is, has the Trump administration's policies helped or harmed the LGBTQ community?
Trump does put out a lot of sound bites. I mean, that's politics. It's soundbite politics in 2019. But these sound bites actually inform policies, which inform people's day-to-day perceptions and behaviors. And so when the Trump administration, or perhaps just Trump via Twitter, puts out a statement saying that no more trans people are allowed in the military, that's it, we're cutting you off and anybody in's gotta leave, that affects the lives of transgender citizens of this country. It makes us appear less than to other people who now can justify their bigotry and their transphobia because look at what the government does. Look at how the government treats transgender people or thinks of transgender people as being less than. If you're so less than that you can't even serve the country that you live in and go and fight and die so that we can continue to have these rights that everybody says that we should have and we should celebrate, then how worthy are you? You're not worthy.
I think we need to have a more nuanced conversation in our community about military involvement, because I think about the politics of the folks at Stonewall, right? Like Sylvia Rivera was staunchly anti-war, and I think we need to have a real conversation on how easy it is for us to jump into patriotism and jump into feeding this American imperialist machine so that we can assimilate.
All right, 2020. Obviously, President Trump is running again. And there are about 50 billion Democrats running right now. Is anybody exciting you? Are you excited at all about the elections? And is there somebody that's standing out? I know it's early, but does anybody stand out right now?
I'd be happy with anyone.
Anyone?
I'd be happy with anyone who isn't Trump. I'm saying that as a joke. Let me specify. Let me make sure that everybody knows that's a joke before I get attacked. I think that it's really difficult to say this early on. For me, some of my front runners, none of them are perfect, of course. Elizabeth Warren, if I had to vote right now, would have my vote. Kamala Harris. Mayor Pete's adorable, but he's not quite adorable enough,
Yeah, my front runner right now is Senator Elizabeth Warren as well. I appreciate her approach on student loan debt, because I got it.
Right.
But also like her calling out the issues that black transgender women are facing right now and not being afraid to say their names really meant a lot to me. So I'm watching her.
All right, David?
I think it's early. Someone was asking me that the other day, and I was thinking to myself, There's too many damn people. Like, I want it to be whittled down to like 5 or so, and then we can really go into the nuances. I do think Elizabeth Warren has a lot of pluses. I do hear this whole undercurrent about Joe Biden is going to be the only one who could, beat Trump and all this other stuff. I think Democrats are going to have to get over their issues and their egos, and they're going to have to work together. And I think it involves having like transgenerational and different genders and having other different races, other people like that in a ticket, instead of everyone trying to be the head honcho, like realize that probably 2 of y'all would be better. So I could see a combination of Elizabeth Warren and someone else, or Joe Biden and someone,
Stacey Abrams,
and Stacey Abrams, or someone just younger. Like, it's exhausting. Like, Barack Obama was 47 when he was voted into office. Like, all these, and this is I'm not trying to be ageist or anything, but like when all the candidates are like in their 70s, I'm kind of like, how long are you going to be around? What's going to happen? And seriously, like, we need somebody with a little bit more youthful energy to bring in there. So I think a combination ticket to me would be better. But I do like Elizabeth Warren, just to echo what a lot of other people say.
I have a question that I want to ask of both Lucy and Sarah. You are the 2 people who lean conservative who've told me that you're not going to vote for Trump this year, in 2020. So what are you going to do?
Find someone else.
Okay, and so far?
I haven't really had anyone coming out. It's really early, too. But I suppose what I would say is I want to define who I would want to run as someone who's going to make sure that they're taking care of America first and trying to figure out our problems here.
Look, I'm still very hopeful that we get a third-party option. I think Justin Amash is thinking about potentially getting in, and there still may be another Republican primary challenger. I think before the end of the summer, we'll know whether or not somebody else is going to get in. I think somebody else should get in. I think someone should make a pitch for a 21st century Republican Party that isn't sort of built around a cult of personality around Donald Trump. There's a lot of people who could do that, young Republican congressmen or other folks. If we don't get that and I'm forced into a binary choice between Trump and a Democrat, it's going to really depend on the Democrat. I'm never going to vote for Bernie Sanders. There's just no way. And I would probably vote for, my mom. But
Write her in.
Yeah, that's right. Write her in. But here's the thing. Look, if it's somebody like Joe Biden, look, do I agree with Joe Biden on most issues? I do not. But I don't think that the world is going to be plunged into a socialist hellscape because of 4 years of Joe Biden. I think you can go back and beat him later with a future leader of the Republican Party who will make a lot more sense to me than Donald Trump.
Mayor Pete has been mentioned. Mayor Pete is gay. He's been on the cover of magazines with his husband. Does having somebody who's gay running right now, does that make you want to vote for him?